Morning, folks. I think we're going to go ahead and get started as we have a few more people filter in on Zoom. So good morning, everybody. I'm Jennifer Lyon-Gardner. I'm the Deputy Vice President for Research, Scholarship, and Creative Endeavors here at UT Austin. And we're here to tell you today about ways that our office can support you in finding research collaborators, both within and beyond UT. Next slide, please. So the way this is going to run is we have this set up as a webinar just to kind of help with crowd control. While we did disable chat to kind of funnel all the questions into one place, I do invite you to please submit your questions that you may have during today's presentations through the Q&A function in Zoom. We do have about 20 minutes reserved at the end of the hour to go through those questions and answer things for folks. So I hope that you'll put your questions in there, and I'll be monitoring those as people on my team are speaking. We are going to record the event so that folks who wanted to attend but weren't able to today are able to go back later and learn about these resources so that you know it is being recorded. All right, and I'm going to start by giving a little overview of our portfolio and what it is that we do to support researchers at UT. So I am the head of research development institutionally here at UT. Research development, not to be confused with R&D or research and development, it actually is its own term. It's a set of capacity building activities that have the purpose of helping to increase investigators' ability to attract external support and recognition for their scholarly pursuits. We focus a lot on my team on collaborative efforts, on team research, on team science, and those sorts of things because it can get inherently more complex. And so it's helpful to have more support and facilitation in that way. UT provides research development or RD support at an institutional level through OVPR, the Office of the Vice President for Research, Scholarship, and Creative Endeavors. And specifically, it's within the portfolio that I lead. Next slide, please. So my RD portfolio serves UT Austin principal investigators, which includes both faculty and then also staff who have PI status. And we support people both in tactical and in strategic ways. On the tactical side, we provide complex proposal development support. We also oversee certain processes on campus, such as the process for internal competitions, for limited submission research opportunities. We support the funding opportunities database pivot, and you may see info sessions and other, kind of sponsor targeted, grant targeted programs that we offer throughout the year that we advertise on the PI informational listserv, and that my colleague Liza Scarborough is often heading. On the strategic side, you may also know that we offer some mechanisms of seed funding that enable PIs to explore new research directions. We usually have an info session about this every fall, coinciding with new faculty orientation. So if you are curious about that, if you look on the OVPR website, we do keep recordings of all of our presentations, and you can find that there along with a lot of our other info sessions and workshops. We stimulate previous slide, please. We stimulate formation of interdisciplinary teams that can attract external research support. So we do this through some of the programming I'm going to talk about today, and also through our research interest groups. And then we also provide a platform to amplify, the great work that people are doing and really showcase that research expertise. Next slide, please. So this is what the org chart looks like in RD. As I mentioned, first I'll show you the tactical, really the proposal development side. A lot of people know us for this, is working with complex center grants, major multi-investigator grants. We have a pretty good track record of wins on this, and we've been doing this for about 7 years now in OVPR. This is also where the limited submission process lives. And I mentioned those info sessions, those would fall under training and resources. And there are some OVPR administered awards and grants, such as the research and creative grants, the special research grants, book subventions. You may be familiar with some of these. When we think about these things, we realize that what is really important is that to position people to be competitive in proposal development, there's a lot of work that needs to happen before the proposal is being considered. And so I call that left of RFP, ahead of a request for proposals. And this is the group that we call collaborative research engagement and research impact. So what's covered within this group are things that help people find collaborators and help those teams to nucleate, to form, to build trust, build relationships with each other so that they are well positioned to pursue outside support to sustain their work in the long term. So we do this in several ways. The largest scale one that you maybe have heard of are our research grant challenges, also known as the Bridging Barriers program, that includes Good Systems, Whole Communities, Whole Health, Planet Texas 2050. We have representatives from each of those here today. We have research interest groups, which are kind of less, not as grand scale as the grand challenges, but groups of investigators from multiple colleges and schools who have a shared research interest that they want to discuss together, and that we support convening them to help them, get on a pathway toward external support for that idea. We also have key external partnerships that we manage, and my colleague Sarah Hernando is going to talk about those later today. And then finally, there's investigator skill building for the purpose of increasing one's research impact. We're going to, this spring, for example, we'll be rolling out a whole series around NSF broader impacts and developing strong broader impacts plans. And that's another set of events that you can find on our website if that interests you. These areas of our org chart are actually very well aligned with UT's strategic plan, which was announced last fall. I'm sure everyone here, has read all 100 pages of it cover to cover and knows it really well. If you haven't, next slide, please. I will recap for you a couple things that we do in OVPR that align with what's written in the strategic plan. So there is a portion of the strategic plan that is focused on people, place, and pursuits. In place, the strategic plan talks about embracing and enriching the spirit of Austin and Texas by strengthening our leadership role in several different arenas. We support this in research development through the relationship management that we do with these institutional research relationships and partnerships. You've maybe heard of some of these before, such as our relationship with the City of Austin, our master interlocal agreement, and also our strategic relationship with MD Anderson Cancer Center and with a national laboratory. If you have not heard of any of this before, don't worry, you're not behind. Sarah will be introducing all of this today in her portion of the presentation, so you're in the right place to hear about it. And then the other part of the strategic plan, which obviously OVPR has a large role in, is the research focus of the strategic plan. The research focus names four different priority areas. The first is very broad, which is celebrating bold approaches. This is kind of all forms of bold and creative inquiry. The other three are somewhat more targeted, but also pretty broad. We see energy and environment, technology and society, and then health and well-being. And so within the OVPR research development collaborative research engagement team, we have programming that supports each of these strategic plan pillars. Next slide, please. So we have for each of the latter three, one of those three research grand challenges is directly supporting this pillar. And the program directors for those grand challenges are here today to tell you about that. And then that fourth one is really a catch-all for all bold creative research that doesn't fit neatly into one of these other three pillars. And we have a new program we're rolling out, the Network for Collaborative Research Impact, which Laura Dean Shapiro is going to preview for you today. That's going to be something that we're rolling out starting in the fall, and it's going to be a really exciting thing that I'm looking forward to. So that concludes kind of the overview portion of this webinar. What's going to happen next between now and about 11:40 is my different program directors and members of my team who oversee these different, these different mechanisms are going to each talk to you briefly, about 5 minutes per speaker, about their program, about its research focus, and about what the opportunities are there for you to collaborate with that program or find a research collaborator within that program, and how we can help you find collaborators. So up first is our program director in OVPR for Health and Wellbeing, Dr. Clint Lasath, who's going to tell us about both Whole Communities, Whole Health and UT's strategic research partnership with the MD Anderson Cancer Center.
Thanks, Jennifer. So I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to start with MD Anderson first, but yep, my name is Clint Lasath. I'm the program director in the Office of Vice President for Research, Scholarship, and Creative Endeavors, who's focused mainly on the health and well-being portfolio. The first thing I want to talk about is the strategic collaboration among MD Anderson and University of Texas at Austin. The goal here, when it was put in place in early 2020 by the presidents of the two respective institutions, was to increase the number and the depth of research collaborations between these two UT system members. And one of the things that I'll talk about here, just very briefly, we do have seed funding opportunities. We have, had, we're currently evaluating the fourth round of proposals right now. We've had those going for a couple of years. And, really the point of this is to create research engagement, getting folks talking to one another, matchmaking. And if you're interested in, working with somebody at MD Anderson, back in November of last year, we had an MD Anderson UT Austin Collaborative Research Summit. I'm going to talk about the other one coming up here soon. And then, we have other opportunities like a neurodegeneration brain tumor chalk talk series that goes on monthly virtually. If you got ideas for others, please let me know. Next slide. And so I'm going to jump here to Whole Community Soul Health. This is a group I've been working with for about 5 years. The vision overarching here is really to build a new model for longitudinal cohort studies using community engagement, technology, and 21st century technology, and then providing feedback to participants with their data. Part of this is creating a technological infrastructure, processes, and partnerships to help with that endeavor. But one of our goals is to use that not only to support this one cohort study, but to support a constellation of cohort studies. And of course, we're maintaining a space for interdisciplinary collaboration along the way. Next slide, please. So we focused on children's health within this cohort study. We are, welcoming community partners along the way in an equity-centered approach. We have been working to engage families from groups that have typically been traditionally excluded from research. And all along, we're working to conduct interdisciplinary research here as well. Next slide. So you can see here a lot of the stakeholders that we work with. So many groups in the community. Del Valle Independent School District is one of our key partners. And that's because we're focused mainly in the Del Valle eastern crescent of Travis County outside of Austin. Next slide, please. So what happens during this study? First, potential participants would attend an information session. Then if they're interested, we would go visit them at their home and consent them into the process. The third step, they would download an app, a mobile app that we've developed, where they are completing surveys of different kinds. If they opt in, they can provide biological and environmental samples of various types. And then we also are using a lot of research tech devices, Fitbits, environmental sensors, accelerometers, all manner of things. And then, of course, feeding back data to our participants and then reflecting. Next slide. This is just to show you that there are a lot of things that we're collecting across a large span of social, environmental determinants of health. Next slide. So where we are now, we're continuing to enroll families. We've already surpassed 70 families. We are finishing with the first cohort, the first year, and moving into year 2 for them. We are continuing to refine our technology as we go. But how could you get involved with this group? Well, we have communities of practice around the following areas. And if you are interested in participating in those, I can get you plugged into that. Because we're at the intersection of years, there's the opportunity to add new measures. We can, but then, the traditional method, right, collaborate with researchers to look at hypotheses for those data in the lake, or, write some grant proposals with researchers if you're looking to get involved. So if you could go to the next slide. So in end of April, we've got our research showcase going for Whole Community Soul Health. That'll be over in Mulva Auditorium. We'll be putting an RSVP site up very soon for that. The neurodegeneration and brain tumor chalk talk series, sorry, that's a mouthful. It's monthly, it's going on. If you want to attend that, get in contact with me. I can get you the invite for that. And then probably end of October, beginning of November, we're still working out final dates. There's going to be the reciprocating Research Summit down in Houston, where we'll have the opportunity to mix with our MD Anderson colleagues. If you want to get in contact with me, you can either look me up in the directory and hit me directly, or at wcwh@austin.utexas.edu, and I will pass it off to the next person.
Thanks so much, Clint. So up next is our Program Director for Technology and Society, also the Staff Program Director for the Good Systems Research Grand Challenge, Leah Sabatini.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, my name is Leah Sabatini, and I am Program Director for Good Systems. As Jennifer mentioned earlier on in the presentation, Good Systems is one of the programs that furthers research themes within the Technology and Society research pillar. So Good Systems is one of those 3 research grand challenges that Jennifer mentioned earlier. And our starting point is really first accepting that AI is everywhere. It is so pervasive that we don't even think about its presence in many aspects of our daily lives. And yet at the same time, we're also observing the advancement of AI technologies that have the potential to further reshape the way that we live and work and study. Some that come to mind are generative AI tools like ChatGPT that are causing a lot of buzz lately. And these technologies aren't inherently or purposefully harmful, but they do come with unintended consequences on society because the developers of AI don't always fully consider the dangers that they could pose. And we see reactive laws coming out of this as well. So Good Systems in all of this really seeks to disrupt this pattern by ensuring that ethical decisions are involved in the design of AI-based technologies so that AI is responsive to the needs and values of society. So when we say good systems, what we mean are socially beneficial AI systems. Next slide, please. So Good Systems is interdisciplinary. We have over 150 researchers spanning over 30 departments here at UT Austin, and interdisciplinary collaboration is really fundamental to our mission. We need technologists, social scientists, and humanists all working together to address the technical and the social and ethical needs in this field. And we welcome new collaborators to join us in this work from across all disciplines. Next slide, please. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our 6 research themes, each of which has a project team led by faculty. First, we have racial justice. This project is interested in moving beyond the concept of fairness in AI to an equity-centered lens. They have 3 areas that they're focused on: a case study with the city of Austin, a study of racial disparity in pedestrian fatalities, and also AI and health equity. We have a smart cities group that uses AI technologies to fuse urban data sets together and build digital twin models with the goal of improving decision-making in cities. Their research directions include the environment, specifically wildfire mapping and prediction, and transportation and housing. We have a group focused on privacy and surveillance that are motivated by the widespread use of municipal cameras and AI-generated video data in smart cities. And they're focused on investigating the social acceptance of these cameras and the data that they generate. And they're also developing technical solutions that could serve to satisfy privacy concerns. We have a group focused on the spread of myths and disinformation online as well. And they're using AI like natural language processing to work together with human fact checkers to mitigate the spread of disinformation. Our Living and Working with Robots team studies both the technical and the social aspects of coexisting with robots. And their test bed is right here on UT Austin's campus. In fact, you may soon see robot dogs walking across campus, and this is part of their study to observe how the community interacts and reacts to robots. And finally, we have a team that's focused on the future of work, specifically with smart hand tools, and they're interested in using AI to empower workers rather than AI replacing workers. And they're developing hand tools that are embedded with AI and sensing that can improve training and job safety. And welding is one major focus area. So if you're interested in any of these themes that I just shared, or if you do related research, our teams would love to collaborate with you. I'll share at the end how you can contact me, but also on our website, all of our projects are listed with the team members, and that's another channel to get in touch with our teams. Okay, so upcoming events. This is another wonderful way to get involved with good systems. If you're interested specifically in the ethics of AI, we would love to see you at one of our events. Coming up next week, we have a Good Systems panel that's going to be featured at the Texas Science Festival. This is hosted by the College of Natural Sciences. Our Good Systems speaker series is reflective of those 6 themes that I discussed. And the next one coming up is the first week of March. And we're hosting UT Austin professor Sarah Brain, and she'll be talking about privacy and surveillance with respect to policing. Next slide, please. And finally, our Good Systems Symposium. This is our signature annual event. It is the first week of April, April 3rd and 4th. Our symposium showcases our researchers' work, but also hosts conversations with other thought leaders in the field. Next slide, please. Okay, so we would love for you to get involved. Here are some ways that you can get connected. Our Good Systems email address, or you can email me directly. If you join our mailing list, you will receive regular announcements of events or any research opportunities that we may share. And also you could follow us on Twitter. And I look forward to your questions at the end of the other presentations. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Leah. Up next, we have our Program Director for Energy and Environment, also the current Staff Program Director for the Planet Texas 2050 Research Grand Challenge, Dr. Heidi Schmelbach, who's going to go next.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hi, everybody. I'm Heidi Schmelbach, as Jennifer said, the Program Director for Planet Texas 2050 within the Energy and Environment pillar here within OVPR. Like Whole Communities, Whole Health, you can go to the next slide, please. And Good Systems Planet Texas is a research grand challenge here at UT focused on fortifying Texas's resilience. The image on this slide illustrates the key drivers of our work in PT 2050. It shows the traditional dry line along the 100th meridian, which separates arid West Texas from humid East Texas, that has been migrating slowly eastward, and which will continue that trajectory as temperatures warm and the impacts of climate change become more pronounced. And then at the same time, in the shaded areas, you see we continue to have tremendous growth in the state. We're projected to surpass 40 million by 2050. And most of that growth will be in and around our urban centers. So you have these 2 trends that are on course to collide in a relatively short period of time and lead to a lot of challenges. Of course, we can't talk about resilience without understanding social vulnerability and the cascading and compounding impacts of climate change, particularly for communities that have been rendered vulnerable through exclusion and through policy, as acute stressors like hazards exacerbate longstanding inequities. So none of this can be effectively addressed without centering equity and environmental justice. And lastly, I want to note here that we are focused on these issues and potential solutions in Texas because of our unique vulnerability to natural hazards, because of our diverse ecosystems and population, because we're an energy capital and so forth, but we're by no means exclusively focused on Texas. Rather, we think about Texas as a bellwether and a microcosm, such that solutions developed here can be adapted in other places. And all of our teams have critical national as well as international research collaborations. So if you're doing work in this area, but it's not focused on Texas, we would still love to hear from you and love to collaborate with you. Next slide, please. Resilience is the art of learning to live together as if our futures really mattered. This quote speaks to the holistic approach that we take in PT 2050 when we think about resilience. So we're absolutely speaking about climate and climate resilience, or our ability to withstand the shocks and stressors that come from climate change. And that tends to be the domain of science, the sciences, engineering, and technology. But we're also talking about our capacity for imagination, our capacity to envision our collective future and to act as a collective, which encompasses the domain of arts, humanities, and the social sciences. So that framing is really evident in our interdisciplinary network. We have over 145 researchers across many departments, as well as key community-based municipal and industry partners. We also work really intentionally with multidisciplinary artists, both in and outside of UT, through our artists in residence and now artist fellowship programs, which I'm happy to talk about further if folks are interested. Next slide. Like Good Systems, the research agenda of Planet Texas is carried forward largely through work of our flagship research projects. Those are the first 6, the orange and gray titles that I have listed here. And then additionally, across all of the projects, we have these key research and programmatic activities, which are listed in blue. So across all of our projects, we are downscaling climate projections to inform long-range community planning for resilience. We're, again, understanding the intersecting impacts of social vulnerability, hazard risks, and climate factors. We have a focus on data storage and visualization, especially with our partners at the Texas Advanced Computing Center. That's both within the AI-enabled model integration team and across all projects. And this helps to provide the cyber infrastructure needed for scenario modeling and timely decision support. And then we have a number of creative collaborations across all of our teams and through various programs and partnerships that help make sense and meaning from what can be overwhelming, both in terms of amount and specificity of information, as well as the emotions that accompany, quite frankly, grappling with existential threat. Because of time, I'm not going to tell you everything about all of these teams, but just taking the top 2 briefly, our frontline community partnerships for climate justice team is focused on how research and practice partnerships support frontline communities' responses to climate change and can better inform policies and services that mitigate impacts for historically marginalized communities. Our Stories of Ancient Resilience team studies how past human societies have responded to major environmental challenges, especially the management of water resources and major demographic shifts in urban contexts. All of our research teams have individual pages on the Planet Texas 2050 website, so you can read and learn more about their work there. And also feel free to get in contact with the PIs who are listed or myself for more information. Next slide, please. Getting involved. So this is really timely for us, and we're lucky this is happening now because we have our annual research symposium coming up in just a couple of weeks. It is over 3 afternoons, Tuesday through Thursday, February 28th through March 2nd, and it's a great way to get acquainted with work not only in the PT 2050 network, but more broadly across campus, research happening within the in the areas of energy and the environment, resilience and sustainability. And I've just highlighted a few of our events happening during the symposium here, both our opening and closing keynotes with visiting scholars, and a panel on Wednesday morning that is with some of our partners at Austin Watershed Protection and the local company Forklift Dance Works. And again, these are just, we have a lot going on over those 3 days, so please check out the link that was just dropped into the chat and register for the things that appeal to you. Next slide. Even more events. This top one, Bodies, Places, and Memories, creative engagement with resilience, is rescheduled from Winter Storm Mara. Yes, it did have a name. That will be happening Monday before our symposium from 2 to 3 o'clock. That'll be a hybrid panel discussion as well as a demonstration of a immersive experience that we're calling the Climate Closet. So I really encourage folks to come and check that out. Technically, the Texas Grid Under Pressure is also part of our symposium and is a featured event in the Texas Science Festival. And then we have an exciting brainstorming session coming up in partnership with the Humanities Institute on March 9th. That's a research development session that's really focused on how we can work more with humanities scholars who are interested in participating on an interdisciplinary research team within Planet Texas 2050 and the supports that are necessary to facilitate those collaborations. And then I'll give a plug for our partners over at the Energy Institute, have their Energy Week series coming up March 28th through the 31st. Next slide, please. And we would love to hear from you. You can get in touch with me through the email listed here or through the directory on my personal email. Please check out our website, and you can also follow us on Twitter. Thanks so much. Look forward to your questions later.
Thanks, Heidi. So that concludes our 3 research grand challenges. So 3 of the 4 strategic research pillars. And so that leaves the 4th, which is bold and creative inquiry. And this is a new program that Laura Dean Shapiro, who is our director for bold and creative inquiry, is going to be introducing here. So brand new, starting up this fall. We just convened a steering committee now to be working on this. And I think it's going to be really exciting. And please feel free to put your questions about it in the chat about this or any of our other offerings. So Laura, with that, I will let you take it away.
Thank you so much for a wonderful introduction to this incredibly exciting work. I'm thrilled to have joined this research team, research development team, just a couple of months ago. And I'm thinking through the ways that we can collectively support bold and creative inquiry, which we know is definitely bolstered by interdisciplinary approaches and thoughtful team development. So all of our programming is focused on encouraging curiosity-driven inquiry, and that is applicable to researchers across fundamental approaches, applied and translational, and really is helpful to, we think, to researchers from all the CSUs. So our program, as you'll see on this first slide, is more in development, of course, as we're launching the Network for Collaborative Research Impact, but also does have some existing programming that's ongoing and can provide opportunities for researchers to get involved with. The types of activities that we do are all captured here in the topics that we're talking about providing: support mechanisms, a celebration-focused team culture, and a connection, a space to bring you all together and maybe meet peers that you wouldn't have otherwise. And largely focused on early stage collaborations, but certainly could be a space to grow new or deepen connections that you have existing. Next slide, please. Okay, so our established research interest groups, which many of you may be familiar with, are called the RIGs for short. So ongoing work, both with Sensors and Space Mission. The Sensors group it focuses on supporting researchers with interest in application of sensors for various industries, including, of course, not limited to healthcare, military, environmental work, civil, petroleum industry, applications across. There's a very active graduate student involvement in this particular RIG. They host 3 to 4 speakers per semester, and you'll see here, as is listed, engineering, healthcare, biotech, and College of Natural Sciences, but certainly not exclusive to those if there are researchers beyond those listed CSUs that would like to get involved. Space Mission, also ongoing work, convenes like-minded researchers for the enterprise of research from space platforms, and you'll see those, they have a very broad list of CSUs that are involved in disciplines, including geosciences, aerospace engineering, again, College of Natural Sciences and archaeology, but many, many more. Both of these ongoing RIGs have listservs that you can sign up for. They're both linked through the provided on the main RIG page. If you'll scroll to those particular RIG descriptions, you'll find a link to sign up for each of their listservs and become involved with them. Now, what's really exciting is that our work is designed to be, we'll talk about this more in depth in a second, but really designed to be an incubator space for collaborations that then exist and are supported with extramural funding and beyond. So one great success story we're seeing is the Criminal Legal Systems RIG, which is now becoming something called the Initiative for Law, Societies, and Justice. And that brings together 70 researchers researchers, from across 10 different CSUs. We'd invite you all to attend their launch event next Friday at 2 p.m. And if you'd like to get involved with their work or this sounds interesting to you, you can also reach them by email at the email address provided, justice@utexas.edu. Okay, now we can talk at the next slide about what we're up to. The Network for Collaborative Research Impact is a space that is designed for exactly what it sounds like, collaboration across different ideas, different epistemologies, different ways of thinking about the work, with the main goal of creating impact-driven research. What impact-driven research means is something that can be applicable both to your peer group and also to society at large. It is a broad and all-encompassing opportunity, and we look forward to seeing what kinds of specific mechanisms will really help the researchers that are involved from UT. So right now we have some great ideas. We have a few lightning talks, some networking events, potentially some workshops coming up, but this is the best possible time to get involved if you're interested in impact-driven, collaborative, transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary work, because this will be a space for you to learn from your peers, but also potentially inform the types of specific activities that are possible through this network. So I think that the lightning talks, we have just hosted one just recently, last week. Feels like those days go by so quickly. The next upcoming in April will bring together 4 additional researchers and create a space for them to talk about their work across sociology as well as information systems. So though you may see topics that don't seem immediately aligned, it's an interesting thing to see how often and the conversations become much deeper than perhaps they would have in their silos. We'll host this talk in April and then potentially another one in October. If you're interested in attending, please RSVP, or if you're interested in giving your own talk, get in touch with us. We can certainly talk about that for future opportunities. In April, we plan to host a social event, just a space for you all to speak to one another and talk about what you're working on in a fun, lighthearted, celebratory team culture event. And then as we move into the late spring and fall, we will start doing more specific programming around what teamwork really looks like. This often will be driven by design thinking principles. This is about how and in what best ways can you as a researcher work well with your peers that you may not have the same language or the same background and approaches to really drive home that potential impact of your work. Okay, I'm so sorry. And the bold inquiry, the most exciting part of this, starting next fall, we will offer some seed funding for formed new groups, to pursue meaningful and fruitful collaboration-driven work. So what that will mean is 2 years of support from our office, from my program, to move from idea to presentation of a product that is poised for additional and more prolific extramural funding. We really want to put those supports around you to make sure that you have everything you need to work together as a team and produce more impactful and exciting work. So how do you join? You can sign up for our quarterly newsletter. We will not bombard you, but we will make those newsletters meaningful. We'll talk about the work as it develops and progresses. As I mentioned, you can certainly attend or give a talk, or both, ideally, that's the joke. And if you have any questions about what we're doing or where we're going or how to get involved, please send us an email to ncri@austin.utexas.edu. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Laura. So those are the formal programmings that we had to talk about today, but there's also another really important component of any successful research collaboration, which is just maintaining a good relationship among researchers and stakeholders and partners. And so we do have a couple strategic, institutionally supported research relationships that we support through OVPR, not in a gatekeeping way, but more in a UT is a really large and decentralized organization, and so are these other organizations, and often it can be hard for people in those two organizations to figure out how to connect to each other or where to even begin. And so we have in OVPR dedicated staffing. We have Sarah Hernando, who's going to talk next about how she can help facilitate research partnerships that you may want to start up with either the city of Austin or with one of the national laboratories, Sandia National Laboratories. So Sarah, I'll let you talk more about how you facilitate those partnerships.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so as Jennifer mentioned, my name is Sarah Hernando. I'm the Assistant Director for Research Engagement at OVPR. A large part of my role is to think strategically about how we engage our key external partners. So as Jennifer mentioned, City of Austin and Sandia National Labs are two of those partners, and Clint mentioned MD Anderson, which is another one of our large partnerships. So these two are really important because they engage PIs all over campus. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about them, what that partnership looks like, and then leave you with some resources and what to do if you're interested in collaborating. Okay, so City of Austin. So the City of Austin and UT have a master interlocal agreement, which we refer to a lot as the ILA. It outlines basic terms and conditions, including data sharing and IP, basically as a way to streamline the process so that you're not having to go through the whole business contract process, which we all know can be quite cumbersome. This agreement is effective until 2025. It authorizes $10 million of COA funds to be provided to UTPIs for research projects. This isn't a giant pot of money, unfortunately, but what it is an encouragement to the City of Austin to really think about how research might help what they do. And so there are no predetermined research topics for this. It can be kind of any type of question that you're trying to answer, as well as the City of Austin is trying to answer. So all the way from things like researching the cost of water and how that's tied to water usage, to I think Leah mentioned that the Smart Tools project, which the City of Austin is engaged in. Next slide, please. So this next slide really just outlines the ILA process, and this is a simplified version, but basically either COA or you as a UTPI can submit an idea via the pre-proposal form, which Tessa just posted in the chat. Then I and my colleague at the City of Austin make an attempt to match those projects with the appropriate people. Once that's agreed upon, you work to create what we call a work order, and then the project starts, and we kind of follow up to make sure that everything is going according to the way that you want it, and kind of check in and make sure that all those project deliverables are happening. If you're interested, again, the link here is here to submit a project. You can also check out our website, which lists any upcoming workshops or info sessions. Next slide, please. The second research partnership I wanted to mention is the one with Sandia National Labs. So much like the City of Austin, we do have an understanding with them, which includes a memorandum of understanding, a non-disclosure agreement, a purchase agreement, all things to make it easier for you to collaborate with Sandia. I did want to mention the partnership also includes a faculty loan program, which means that we actually have a faculty member stationed at Sandia right now in Albuquerque, working with the teams there and advocating for UT engagement. Dr. Don Winget from the College of Natural Science is currently studying white dwarf stars and using Sandia's Z machine to do so. So really cool partnership and potential there. Next slide, please. Two ways to get involved with Sandia National Labs really fall into two buckets. One is to collaborate on joint research projects, and I'll talk about that more in a second. And then the second, of course, is to work on joint proposals for external agencies like the Department of Energy. One thing I did want to mention is the LDRD program, which is linked here. But basically that's seed funding that Sandia sets aside for UT researchers in about the amount of $1 million per year, which last year funded about 13 projects. for specific research interests. So that link there shows you kind of what they're interested in. That already happened this year. It usually happens in that January timeframe, but definitely keep an eye out for those as they come through. That seed funding is really there to create connections between researchers. And so, you know, there's still an option to work with Sandia on a Sandia-led project, or have Sandia support or cost share on a university-led research program. If you're interested in collaborating with Sandia and you didn't fill out the LDRD research call, no worries. Go ahead and fill out that Sandia UT Austin collaboration request form there. The last thing that I'll mention are just some upcoming dates as FYIs. The city of Austin and UT will probably host, oh, next slide, please, I'm sorry. We'll host a workshop likely in late spring. We're thinking it'll be surrounding the topic of resilient housing, which will incorporate a lot of different aspects of research and departments, and very relevant to what we've, you know, probably all experienced over the last month. So keep an eye out for that. And then the second date for Sandia National Labs is as an FYI. So Sandia leadership will be in Austin over at the Pickle Research Center on March 8th and 9th, really highlighting these topics listed here above and discussing how we move forward with them. So there will definitely be some follow-up collaborations from that. And yeah, if you're interested, but please let me know. My email is listed below here, which is researchengagement@austin.utexas.edu. And yes, look forward to any questions. I'll turn it back over to Jennifer.
Great, thank you. So we're going to go ahead and stop the slide presentation. That concludes the formal presentation portion of the event. So if we want to stop the slide share so that people can see us as panelists, that's great. So my other folks will come back on camera. So we've got the remaining 12 minutes or so to answer any questions that you might have out there in the audience. And I know that that was a lot of information to take in a short period of time. But I also know that, you know, some things are kind of more topically relevant to you perhaps than other things. And so maybe there's just a subset that's of particular interest. If you do have questions, please do put them in the Q&A, and I'm monitoring that. And we can answer some of those live now. There was a question there about whether we have a calendar where these different events are posted, and we do. It's on research.utexas.edu. If you go to the OVPR homepage, you will find the events calendar in the bottom right corner. You can click on that and see events coming up. It's a pretty busy calendar because it does also include the deadlines for some of these internal competitions and OVPR administered grants. So when you look at it, there's a lot of stuff going on, but it is all there if you are ever interested. We also have a monthly RD newsletter that we send out, which often, you know, we try to have an events rundown in that as well. If you're not getting that, you can send us an email to get added to that list, and we can make sure you're on it. Usually goes out the first Thursday of every month. Other questions from the group? All right. Well, wait, another one came in. Let's take a look. Is there an energy component to Planet Texas 2050 in terms of how Texas will transition? So I think the short answer to that, and I'm going to let Heidi elaborate, is that Texas's energy transition is definitely something that several at UT are thinking about and leading in some capacity. Most of that effort is concentrated in PT 2050. They really think about it from, I would say, the societal impact side. And kind of engaging with frontline NGOs and other groups and the people that this impacts. But from the energy technology side, in terms of the transition, a lot of that is spearheaded with the Energy Institute within OVPR. And outside of OVPR, the Energy Institute and the Bureau of Economic Geology have been working a lot on this, particularly thinking about the Permian Basin region. Heidi, I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
Yeah, I mean, that was exactly right. But I would also say that we do have several of the research teams that I mentioned, especially the Equitable and Regenerative Cities in a Post-Carbon Future flagship project, have an element of their project that is looking at how Texas will transition, and particularly, as Jennifer said, thinking about the human impact and what are the opportunities for development, workforce development within that area. But for sure, we work closely with our partners at the Energy Institute, specifically on that issue.
Yeah. Questions. Great. Well, now we have a couple more questions coming in, so that's good. We have one, is there an inventory of research projects that researchers are currently working on, and can we access it? So there's not an inventory that, somebody central maintains, and the main reason is it would be impossible to keep it up to date, because there's kind of two different aspects, right? There's things that are funded right now, but then there's what somebody's next best idea is, which might not yet be published, which might not yet be funded. And so it's not a thing that's easy to keep a grasp on. UT has close to 5,000 active funded projects out there across a lot of different domains. In the programming that we have, we do our best to kind of have this in the pillars that we talked about, but honestly, it's probably just as effective to do a basic web search on what people are doing than for UT to maintain like an intranet or web of, database of projects. And so that's the way it's been handled, because it's kind of gives more control back to researchers as far as what content is out there about them and what they are focusing on. Let's see. Does this platform help me in finding a collaborator, or I will find one and seek funding? So both. We have ways to support you in both. So I mentioned at the beginning, I showed kind of our org chart and how it's split into this tactical proposal development and then everything that happens left of RFP or before a proposal is developed. So if you're looking for a collaborator, that's where you want to think about the programming and the things that were presented today. And what you're looking for collaboration in. And if you're just not sure, I would say that the best starting point is probably going to be the bold and creative. So if you're looking for a collaborator in a research theme or topic that has to do with any of the specific programs that were mentioned, then the right point of contact would be one of those program directors. If the research that you're interested in, you don't feel fits those buckets, then I would say you want to look under bold and creative and reach out to Laura and her colleague Jeff. And, we all kind of talk together and can huddle as far as like who might be a good collaborator within UT, or if you're looking for someone outside of UT. When you get to a point that you want to seek external funding, if it does meet the threshold of being sufficiently kind of complex cross-college, the way I talked about, then proposal development support may be an option as well, if there's enough lead time from the deadline to when we're being contacted for us to be of use. I'm going to pause for a second and read a couple more of these. Looks like Heidi's typing an answer to one here.
I can also answer that live if it's easier. It's probably faster than typing it out. But yes, to the person, it says anonymous attendee who asked about coastal areas. Absolutely. We have multiple teams who are working on coastal flooding and storm surge modeling, and we are also have multiple teams who are part of the Department of Energy Urban Integrated Field Lab, that is, for which UT is the primary institution that is focused on the Beaumont and Port Arthur area. So we would definitely, please reach out to me and I can connect you and we can discuss that further. But the answer is yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a question here from Brandon Briery as well about ideas for researchers that work with the disability community. And I can think of a few, they're kind of spread out across multiple colleges. So yeah, please send me an email and as follow-up, and I will give you some names, because we've got some that are in education, we've got some that are kind of in liberal arts and population studies, and some in social work too. So I'll get those over to you. Right. And Clint, looks like we got a question from an anonymous attendee as far as an area of brain cancer. Not sure if it falls under the program. So yeah. I would say, yeah.
Yeah, please get in contact with me. I'm happy to connect you with folks at MD Anderson, others, who might be in the space here at Dell Medical School, UT Austin. And yeah, well, we can find you some folks to work with if you're interested in that.
Yeah, there certainly are a lot of people thinking about, frontiers of neuroscience is one of the focus areas in the MD Anderson partnership. But even within that, there's been a lot of talk about neuro-oncology. So I do think that there definitely are some connections to be made there. All right. Well, final call for questions from the audience. I do appreciate everyone sticking with us for the hour. I know it was a lot of content. I hope your takeaway is there is a lot of support of research going on in OVPR, and maybe if I want to find a collaborator, there are people over there who could help me. OVPR has even like a very generic inbox that our colleagues at the front desk are monitoring. So if you walk away and you forget who runs what, or which program was which person, don't worry about it. You can always send in kind of your general query and to the general box, and they'll get it to the right person, and we'll help you out. All right. Well, let's see. So the contact emails are in the slide deck, which we are going to share post-event. So you will have all the contact emails conveniently linked within the deck. So those will come out very shortly. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone. We're pretty much right at noon Central. So thank you again for participating. And thank you again to all my team members for presenting on all the great programs and initiatives that you're supporting. All right. Have a good afternoon, everybody.